Hi guys, welcome to my first badminton racket review. This is one of my other sports that I do, which is mainly for cardio training, but it's one of the most enjoyable sports that I do play, and I'd say I'm at an intermediate advanced level. It's an indoor game, so I play a lot in the winter while I'm not riding or shooting and stuff like that. Um, this is the Li-Ning N99. It's part of their Airstream line, and it's probably their hottest racket right now. When it first came out, I know there's a lot of hype on it. If you're on forums and stuff like that, people were waiting to buy it. It's now sold out here in Canada. No idea when they're going to be getting more. I think I got a good price on it from a local retailer. They're about 200 bucks Canadian, no strings. And yeah, I played with it a couple times already. I come from an N93 currently, and this is the natural successor of the N93. Like all N series rackets, it comes in the Li-Ning, I guess like the gold flower bag, which is really nice. A lot of other racket users, when you see what Li-Ning racket bags look like, they're pretty impressed. So that's the bag. So this is the racket. Again, it's like a box head style Airstream model. So for Airstream, that means that they have these, if you can see here, these cutouts in the frame to increase swing speed. So that's one of the main features of this racket. This is probably one of their stiffest rackets that Li-Ning makes. They're not really known to make really stiff rackets, but this is probably one of the stiffest, and I think it's out here to sort of give people an option to buy a Li-Ning racket that wants a stiff frame. There's a lot of Yonex racket players, and the main competitors by Yonex and Victor, and they both make very stiff frames, like the Z Force 1 and especially the 2. For Victor, I'm not so sure because I haven't really played much with the rackets, but now it gives maybe to try to steal a little bit of business from those current racket users, so they created the N99. It's a really gorgeous looking racket. Looks are very subjective, but I love the matte black with some of the accent teal and red, and they sort of have this honeycomb thing going on. Seems like all the rackets have that, all their higher end rackets have that wing stabilizer technology. I use a towel grip. I somewhat recently changed over towel, and I find that it's just easier for me. The fact that I need to change it a lot and I need to put chalk on it doesn't really bother me too much. I prefer actually to have a really dry towel that is quite used as opposed to a new towel. So everyone has a preference when it comes to the grip. How does the racket sort of handle and feel? Well, it's not really a head heavy racket. I played with an N9 as well, which is more head heavy, and I played with some the Adidas racket, which I sort of forget which model was their top of the line model, and also had an N55-2. I'd say this is more similar to an N55-2 than the current N93 that I have that is supposedly supposed to succeed. It's more of a balanced type of racket when it comes to the weight distribution, but it's most notably it's stiffer. So I'm more of a doubles player only because when I play with my friends and stuff like that, and generally at the clubs, it's just people play doubles, so I sort of got filtered into playing doubles. It's difficult to find people that want to play singles, so I play doubles a lot. I personally think that this racket's a bit too heavy for doubles, especially if you're a front court player. If you're a backcourt player, I think you could probably get used to it and manage with it, but overall I think it's a little bit too heavy as a doubles racket. I'm definitely much more slower in my reaction times for defense compared to my N93. Um, that's probably the biggest downfall is your reaction time, your reflex. So when you're that 1 millisecond off on your reaction, you also lose the control factor as well. So you have that much less time to think of how you want to do a shot or if you want to do a deception. So I think this would probably be a great singles racket. Having said that, like I have played really good games with doubles with this racket. Sometimes I really gelled with the racket, and sometimes it didn't. I don't know if it's just because I haven't had it or played with it long enough, but every single time I sort of felt that, you know, I'm not really doing so well with the racket. I went back to my N93 and everything was sort of jolly after that. I string my rackets to 30 pounds and I use Li-Ning #1 strings. I have used basically the full range of Yonex strings and they're good, but I'm just used to the Li-Ning strings. They're also cheaper, so that's basically it. I mean, they're just as durable, I find, as Yonex strings, and just as consistent. They may not sound as good, but I don't really care about that. So this is definitely not a beginner racket. I think this is a very good racket. I'm glad that I have it. I'm gonna actually play with it more. I'm gonna start playing with it more to really figure it out. It definitely smashes better than my N90. Just because it's stiffer, so I have to adjust the way I play. You have to definitely use more speed in your swing to really get the full potential of this racket. But yeah, I think that's about it. Before this, just some background information. Before this racket came out to the public, a lot of the national players you would see, if you follow badminton, all the tournaments and stuff like that, you see a lot of the Chinese men's national players use this racket. Zhang Nan and Fu Haifeng, and I think even Chen Long used it in some of the opens. And I noticed that a week later on their next open, they would already not be using this racket. So I don't know if it's a marketing thing just to show people that, look, our national players did use it in a tournament. They grabbed the photos and then now they're selling them. They released it and then it sold like hotcakes. But that, for some reason, that sort of also tells me, not that the quality of your racket isn't good, but I think their target was correct, and it's correct. I mean, they sold out in Canada, so obviously they did something right. But I still think that the flaws of this racket outweigh the positives. So there are other rackets even just in the Li-Ning line that can do what this racket can do, that doesn't have the burden of that stiff feel. And that stiff feel basically means it feels like it's heavy and it responds slower when the actual weight of the racket isn't heavier. So it doesn't have the same flex, and when a racket doesn't have that flex, you generally your shot timing is a bit different, and your control at the net is better. But if you're, I think if it sort of goes both ways. In my opinion, if you're a good enough player, if you're at the intermediate advanced level or advanced level, your net control should be pretty standard across all type of rackets, because there's not a lot of movement at the net. You know, it's very slight movements. So whether your racket is stiff or a little bit more flexible, it shouldn't really affect too much how accurate your net shots are. That's more string tension. It comes down to string tension now. So I think that there are in the Li-Ning line, in the Li-Ning line, there are rackets that do what this racket can do without having that burden of stiffness and that slightly slower response rate. Yeah, so I hope that helps people. I mean, it's obviously, there's a lot of people that are raving about the racket when they buy it, and I've seen really, really good reviews, and I have seen people say that they use it in doubles. It's perfect. They love it for doubles, and everything is so much better now that they have this racket. I mean, I honestly look at those reviews with a grain of salt, because you just blew $250. It's sort of that, you sort of have to almost like it because you just spent so much money on the racket. And I mean, that is what happens a lot of times when you buy something new. You like, oh, I have to like it because I spent so much money on it. It's brand new. It's their newest model. It succeeds what I had. It has to be better. But I mean, all these companies, they're still a company. They're here to make money. They have to have new models, or else they'll look like a dormant company. So I mean, it really sounds like I'm not praising the racket. It's a great racket, and I mean, I played with it, and there was games where it felt like so good playing with the racket. It might be also my level isn't really high enough yet to play with the amount of consistency with it, or I don't have enough, I guess, game time with it to really shine with it. But in my opinion, if you pick up a new racket and you play, you know, numerous hours with it, probably like 15 hours with the new racket, and you still haven't really gelled with it, then I think that the racket's just not right for you. So I'm not saying the racket's bad, the racket might just not be right for me, but I think, you know, obviously there's going to be a lot of people like me and like other people. So from my point of view, that there is this possibility that you will feel the same way I feel about the racket if you pick up this racket. Even demo playing the racket is difficult, because you only demo play for what, 10-15 minutes, maybe a game or two or whatever. It's difficult sometimes, and usually when you demo a racket, the strings are not using the same ones and the tension is not what you use. So I demoed my racket before I purchased it, and honestly my girlfriend bought it for me for my birthday, so that's why I have the racket, and she knew I wanted it just because I was looking at it because it's a new racket. But yeah, still a good racket. It's definitely for an attacking player. I think that if your forearms are strong enough and you just want a stiffer racket and you want to stick to the Li-Ning brand, this is probably your go-to racket, because this is probably the stiffest racket that Li-Ning makes, and you're not gonna really get anything stiffer than this. So if a lot of people in badminton are brand loyal, so if you want to stick to Li-Ning and you want a stiffer racket than your N9 or your N93, or you want to try something that's less head heavy than an N9, then yeah, I mean, like, add to your arsenal, get another racket. They're not that expensive. So yeah, that's my review. Thanks.